Hi, it's Chris Watkin here, and I'm joined by Michael Nettleton, who is the boss man of Nock Deighton and very well known estate agency in the industry. Mike, thanks for joining me today.
Pleasure, thank you, Chris.
I would like to go through your estate agency story, man and boy, so the boys and girls out there in estate agency and letting agency land can learn from your mistakes, your hopes, your dreams, your story in essence. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yeah, far away.
I've been led to believe that estate agency was in the family blood, is that correct?
Yes. So Nock Deighton was founded in 1831. Its origins was, rural practice, livestock auctioneers, chartered surveyors, etc. And when my dad moved down from Hull when he was 16, started off life as an article clerk, and he spotted the opportunity in the estate agency in as much as there was a significant business there and it needed to be a separate thing rather than just something that the surveyors and the livestock auctioneers did in the days they weren't doing the market.
So roughly when was that then?
How old would Dad have been? So that would have been like the mid-60s, something like that.
Okay, so he joined the firm. Was he part of the firm already, or?
Yeah. So he moved down from Hull down to Shropshire as a 16-year-old. So he was tasked with being a livestock auctioneer, and his brother a butcher, funnily enough.
So did he have an Hull accent like that?
Basically, yeah, which he pretty much got rid of actually. So you never would have known it.
But if you took him back to Hull, it would soon come out.
Yeah, snap in, yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. And so when were you drafted in as a child of the boss, or one of the bosses in?
All my life in one way, shape or form. So it started off as penning sheep for the livestock market, and then in the other days I was working in the estate agency, photocopying.
So how old were you at this point then?
Stickers on it. Any age. So I probably started from about 11 or 12, I would have thought.
Okay, and this is in Bridgnorth or
Kidder? Yeah, correct, Bridgnorth. Yeah, which is the head office and where it all started.
Okay, so you were basically penning sheep and sticking photographs when you were a teenager.
Basically, yeah.
I must admit, my pocket money was stopped when I was 9 years old and drafted into the family butchers.
Spot on, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be done. Did you think at that time this was the business for me?
No, absolutely not. So
okay.
It was a funny one really, because I was kind of bright enough to realise that doing those kind of menial tasks probably wasn't going to be the way I was going to earn my fortune, but I perhaps wasn't bright enough to realise that actually if I worked my way up the ladder, that there was something worth doing there. So I thought that was a estate agency, if that makes sense.
Sticking photographs on and herding sheep.
And in the nicest possible way, I've got better things to do in my life, but I've no idea what that is.
Actually, if you think about it, we probably still do herd sheep.
Yes, it's really changed.
So when did the penny drop and you think to yourself, I'm going to get a bit more professional on this one?
I think it was when I graduated from university, really. So I got a degree. I hadn't got a clear plan as to what to do.
What degree did you do?
Economics.
Okay.
So Dad was always very hands-off. He was always like, look, you can do whatever you like. It's entirely up to yourself. And then when I said, actually, can I join the agency? He was like, yeah, brilliant. Doors open.
So what year did you come into the business?
So that would be about 2002 when I graduated.
Okay, as a surveyor?
Yeah, as a surveyor.
General practice or agricultural?
In a residential, yeah. So okay. looking in lofts and such like. So.
God, that's dull, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be fair, it was quite funny really, because again, Dad very hands off. As he would have told me afterwards, he says, I couldn't think of anyone less likely to be a decent surveyor than you. And I hated it. I found it boring, repetitive, tedious. There was no fun in it whatsoever. But my perception was a chartered surveyor was something worth doing.
Well, I must admit, my early career mirrors yours. I went on work experience to the estate agents, thought, well, best go and be a surveyor, got my qualification, and then realised, yeah. You get to see in lots of airing companies, though, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's about it, though, isn't it?
That's about the highlight, yeah.
Okay, so how long before you, in 2000, 2003, did you say, well, looking at lofts is not for me,
sure.
Looking at woodworm is not for me, and putting in those two prongs into the wall?
Correct, yeah.
When did the penny drop and you think to yourself, actually, I think estate agency is for me?
It was probably about 12 months into it.
Okay.
And as part of my CPD, there needed to be an element of kind of the residential side as part of that. And actually, to be fair, on the surveying side, it was a really good grounding in terms of building pathology and things. So it wasn't a year wasted by any means. But as soon as I sat into the sales side, I just came home going, "This is brilliant. I love it." And then Dad brought in the status report, and it was just like in the I was like, I can see exactly what we're doing. I want to do this.
A status report, what would that be to the boys and girls out
So
there?
yeah, in terms of just the funnel, I suppose, as far as the estate agency is concerned, in terms of, you put market appraisals in the top and you kick out exchanges at the bottom and everything else that goes on in between, and it just made perfect sense.
I mean, 0304, the housing market was just beginning to take off. In fact, it was already taking off in 0203. You enjoying it?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, but I was at the kind of the
How old were you at
bottom.
this point? 22,
So
23?
I'd be 22, 23, 24. Yeah.
Okay, your boss's son, or one of the boss's sons, were you? Did you get any grace or favours because of that?
Not particularly, no. But then again, I wouldn't want any either. So yeah, it has its own challenges, but I wouldn't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. So.
Okay, and at this point here, you just thought, this is for me?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I was absolutely on board, loved it. So.
Could you see at this point that eventually you were going to take over the business?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I always kind of knew that I would in some way, somehow, but I actually felt that I could actually really contribute, and this is something I'm really deeply passionate about. If it all went terribly wrong, I'd go and get a job in an agency.
Well, I mean, what were your hopes? How old were you then? So you were 23, 24. Would you be married at this time? Were you settled down?
No.
You were young, free and single and ready to mingle?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So you had your XR2 and...
Not quite. So myself and Russ don't really get on, so I'm not that bothered by cars. But yeah, I did have other lifestyle choices which took up my money, absolutely.
Good stuff. So what were your hopes at this point? Or was it just all perfect and wonderful in 02, 03, 04?
Yeah, I think it was just ambitious, really. And I was trying to build a platform for like financial security and,
And what did you love about estate agency?
All of it. Every day's different.
Come on, let's
You're dealing with people. It's competitive.
Are you a competitive sort of person?
Yeah.
Not detrimental to yourself?
No. There's nothing wrong with losing. I think it's good. I think there's such a thing as a bad winner as well. But I do like the competitive element because it holds the mirror up, doesn't it?
And where do you get that competitive element from? Your mum, your dad, or your grandparents?
From a family point of view, I'm not sure. I'm probably... my dad wasn't default competitive, although he played a lot of sport and such like, but he had that steel in him, certainly. I couldn't say, to be honest, it's just something that's in me. But I wouldn't say I was more competitive than most. And
was there anyone else in the firm that you learnt a lot from in these early formative years?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very fortunate in as much as there were two people on the estate agency side who were phenomenal estate agents. There's David Jones, who's still practicing over in Worcestershire, and Mike Evans, who's recently retired probably 5 or 6 years ago, who were just exemplary estate agents.
And what did they teach you about good estate agency?
I think the key thing is about asking good quality questions, really, and one of the mantras we have at the business is, do what's in the best interest of the customer. So, which is possibly something that when commercial pressures kick in, estate agents as a generalisation sometimes can fall foul of. So we always use that as our kind of guiding principle, and it works, which is the reason why we've been going so long, because that's the plan.
And did you make any mistakes at these time?
Yeah, loads. Yeah. So,
I mean, in hindsight, I know, and again, we're still talking 03, 04 here. Is there any mistakes that you wish you hadn't have made at that point?
No, because you learn from them, don't you? One thing I'm quite jealous of, if that's the right word, is the access to information that we have now, various kind of Facebook groups, training mentors and such like. I'd have given my right arm for that, which I basically did have in terms of those two key people, but the industry at large didn't really have it. You were very much at the mercy of how good whoever was in charge, your direct line manager, was pretty, had a pretty big bearing on your trajectory as an agent, really.
Okay, so we moved the clock forward through to 06, 07. How badly was the firm hit with the global financial crisis?
Yeah, it was a big impact, really. So obviously when Lehman's Bank and everyone went bust, which was in 2008, we had a relatively lean year, the year building up to that, because there was a big, you got vendors who were like, well, house prices go up 10% year on year, that's what they do. And then applicants were going, well, I've seen in the news there's a subprime crisis and I'm not so sure about that. So as an agent, you can bridge a gap of, a couple of percentage points, 5%, let's call it tops. But when you're bridging 10, 20%, it's really difficult. So we had a relatively slow year building up to the great financial crisis. And then when it hit, strange enough, from a personal point of view, I saw the opportunity in that because everybody's on the same page. And up to a point, so did Dad, in as much as what he did is he raised the necessary finances by separating ourselves from the livestock market. And he bought out the partners who were all of an age. They said, look, we believe in the project, but we're not going to be around long enough from a professional capacity to earn back any money we put in. So Dad bought their shares out effectively and changed the firm from a partnership into directors. So he put quite a large sum of money in to do that.
How much did he put in?
So he put in about £750,000.
£750,000.
Yeah, so significant. So and with that,
You weren't part of the business at this point.
no. So this would be in 2000.
Did he tell you?
So I was part of the business, yes, but I wasn't on the board, if that makes sense. So I was one of the managers.
Can you remember him telling you that he basically found that's a lot of money?
Yeah, terrifying. Yeah.
How did you feel about your father investing that? In essence, because how old would you be in
I was
2000?
28.
And he would have been what, mid-60s?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 65, something like that. Yeah.
So he should have been retired at that point.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So really, how did you feel about him, if you don't mind me saying, investing £750,000 in you?
Which up to a point, because he believed in the business and he believed in me, really.
Okay.
And I got the fire in my belly and I loved it.
Yeah, but how did that make you feel?
Dad was like that. So a lot of responsibility.
You're not answering the question.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility. And that was, as a leader in the business, that's what we're there for, is when times get tough, we've got to make sure there's something there for the people who deserve it to come back to a job next year. So that's my kind of overarching belief. And I think...
What about you inside, though? Did it keep you up at night?
Yeah, massively. But by the same token, and it set me up for COVID, to be fair, it gave me a very clear reason in terms of why we're here. And my role is to, when the challenges happen, because they will, we need to make sure that during the good years, we've done the right things in order when adversity comes, we can get through it the right way.
So with you paying off the other directors and almost not pushing out, but basically floating off the cattle market,
Sure.
Does that mean now you're an estate agents and surveyors?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Was Dad still doing the surveying and you doing the estate agency?
So yeah, Dad was always more on the livestock market side of things anyway. So
Okay.
The estate agency, whilst he did set it up, he had kind of, his partners ran the estate agency.
Okay. So basically, you didn't have any equity in the business at this time, but basically you were running the estate agency side.
I was running one of the branches, so we had 4 branches at the time.
Okay. What about the surveying side? Did he do any on the general practice surveying?
There was 2 sides of the surveying. So there was the rural practice side of the surveying, and also the building side,
Okay.
which are
But,
separate firms.
but any of the directors that you bought out, were they on the livestock side, you say?
No. The livestock was kept separate. So he bought out the people within the estate agency on the residential side.
Okay. How did 0809 go?
Got through it. That was the main thing.
How did you get through it?
Again, this was probably where COVID kind of, it was a good grounding from that, in as much as I saw that there was an opportunity there. So what did we do? Yes, okay, we did everything everyone else did in terms of, looking at costs, reining our horns in, doing all the survival things. But there was also a massive opportunity there because it was amazing how few agents kind of manage their stock in our area. So ringing people up and having the difficult conversation saying, look, if we're serious about moving, this is what we need to do. And most people would just say, well, it's on Rightmove and fingers crossed someone will ring and, we'll get a sale agreed. So by being pragmatic and seeing the opportunity, it's the old Warren Buffett quote, isn't it? So about being aggressive when others are fearful. So, and it taught me that basically.
Do you think estate agents are still like that in that, working on Rightmove and they don't want to have that difficult conversation?
I think there's a polarisation in estate agency. I think the good agents are getting better and the other agents are getting worse because fees are going down, and how can you recruit people to be good? It's just not possible.
So you got through 0809 and the housing market in Shropshire started to take off in 10-11.
Yep.
How did that, was it difficult to make the changes that you wanted to make in the business?
Yeah, very. So...
but hold on a second, your dad was the sole owner, wasn't he?
Correct. So there was him and myself, actually. So at around 2000, I had equity in it, so it was 50-50 split. But
2010, you mean?
Sorry, 2010, sorry, yeah. So, but from a, running, day-to-day running of the business, there was a board and there were other people involved as well. So.
And how did that work? Because it's your business,
yeah.
but it...
Yeah, probably challenging for everybody in all fairness. And going back to the money that Dad put in, I had a very clear view that we need to do well when things are going well, so we don't have to make bad decisions when things go badly. And as a business, we were profitable, but nothing too exciting. And it was a nice place to work, which was great, and we wanted to maintain that, absolutely. But in terms of actually getting runs on the board and building financial security, that was
what
my
changes
challenge.
did you want to make that caused the unrest?
So from that point of view, putting in targets basically, and just and having that kind of accountability, bonuses, systems, structures.
Okay, so basically, that whilst they had no equity in the business, they were employees. There was a kickback about targets and accountability.
So the whisper was, "Oh, we're going corporate," which just couldn't be further from the truth. But I don't know if
And what year was this?
So that would be in around about 2004, I would suggest. Sorry, 2014. Sorry, I would suggest. Yeah.
So you were 50-50 business
Yeah.
with your dad. You had your full support of your dad.
100%.
But the bottom line is the other branch managers didn't want to be targeted.
There was an element of that, yeah. So we had a big cultural shift where we had to maintain the fact that it's a lovely place to work with having that bit of steel in it that says, look, we're here to get results because, this is a business at the end of the day.
Just so we can, to teach the people and boys and girls in estate and letting agency land, how did you address that issue?
Very challenging, but ultimately, a great read is the E-Myth, funnily enough. If you want to get an insight in terms of what I did, I've basically done that, and it probably took me about 5 years to do it.
Okay, so paraphrase it for the boys and girls out there in estate agency land.
Very simply, you get a piece of paper, you write all the roles and responsibilities and job titles within your organisation, you stick your name in all of them, and bit by bit you start knocking your name out by putting other people's names in until your name is the only one left at the top, which is the chairman or whatever title you want to be called. Okay,
so how did that work in terms of getting your branch managers accountable and targeted?
I suppose the problem was that you've got to be careful what you wish for, don't you? In as much as, we'd grown as a business, and the problem I had was my name was in too many of those boxes. I was sales director, marketing director, heading up lands and new homes, running an office, shareholder, the list goes on. And the simple truth of it, I probably wasn't doing any of those jobs particularly well, because in the nicest possible way, how could you? And whenever you do grow and have plans for change, etc., it will expose any weaknesses that you do or don't have in your business. And it did that to us, really, and it probably took us 5 years to really get ourselves clear in terms of the reason why we were here.
How did you deal with those frustrations? Because 4 or 5 years is a long time.
Yeah, 100%.
What, you didn't really sort it out until 18, 19?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, 17, 18, something like that. So
did you have to make people redundant or?
No, we're not that kind of company, basically.
So how did you change someone's from I'm not having accountable to now being accountable?
I think one of the biggest changes was the fact that Dad had his kind of board of directors who were 100% loyal to him, no problem. They liked me, but they bought into him, if that makes sense. So
were they the same people as the branch managers?
Basically, depending on how the offices were set up, but for simplicity's sake, yes. So the key change really was having a board that was 100% loyal to me, if that makes sense. So now we've got the cultural architects in the business, Tom, Ross, Dawn, Jane, who make up the board, who are absolutely believing in what we're doing.
Are those other people still in the business?
No. So they've all, broadly speaking, kind of retired and kind of exited because they were all of that kind of age anyway. So it was quite challenging for them in the nicest possible way because we were looking to make ambitious changes for the future.
So you didn't make them redundant, but basically you were very nice and basically created a culture and environment. Would you do anything differently? Looking specifically at this, right, in 14, we need to get lean to actually, 4 years is a long time.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
What would you do differently?
The short answer is I don't know. The long answer is the keys in communication. And that is probably our biggest challenge, whatever industry you're in terms of getting people to kind of come with you and telling them what you're going to tell them, and then telling what you told them, I suppose, is one expression. Okay. And it's getting people to kind of buy into that journey. And we probably made all the mistakes, but we did them all for the right reasons and in the right way.
But would you do anything different?
The problem is, if you got it all right, you don't learn anything, do you?
Okay, yeah, come on, give me something. Okay, it's all very good saying, yeah, you don't have mistakes, but what would you do differently?
So I think probably the key really is getting everybody in the room, addressing the fact that there is an issue, getting the old whiteboard out and going, right, well, what are the issues then? Getting them all in there, and then start kind of ticking them off and getting buy-in from the ground up in terms of, right, well, if that's the case, then this is what we need to do, because the IQ was undoubtedly in the business.
So what you're saying is, if you have a problem, get everyone in a room, go to a hotel, and nail it out.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that you were fanning about a bit and?
Yeah, because we're trying to figure it out as we go. Not everybody was on board with the project, be that at whatever level, whether they were the Duke or the Dustman, as far as the company was concerned. So it took a lot of emotional energy. It never really affected the business as such, but in terms of kind of hearts and minds and what you kind of felt, it was very difficult.
Were you enjoying the business, being in the business at the time?
No. Loved the business, loved the job, but the actual challenges of the kind of the HR side of things was significant, really.
My understanding is then in 17, 18, you brought in some external help.
Yeah, so I've always kind of sought advice. So in terms of back in kind of 2014, I joined the Property Academy, of which I've recently rejoined again. Stephen Brown's been exceptional, and we've got lots of kind of training, coaching, mentoring, etc. Within the business, because we want to realise our potential.
Okay, so how did going into COVID? How were you set up?
Quite well, basically. Strange enough, this is what we were kind of touching on with regards to what 2008 taught me. As far as
because you're all set up, you've got your directors. You've got some fantastic directors, targeted. They also speak their mind, because I know a lot of them. They're not mini-me's, are they?
No. The boardroom is a very pleasant place to be, and if you've got an opinion, fantastic. It's more than welcome. So if you scratch the surface of our logo, you'll find something significant underneath. So and again, going back to what we'd been kind of building and planning for, was when adversity strikes, we need to be able to do the right thing. So my single role was, when that happened, I actually quite enjoyed the challenge of it, in as much as I'd managed to delegate enough of the tasks where my one role was to plot the strategy for how we're going to move forward.
I mean, how many branches have you got?
6.
That's quite a rare talent, isn't it?
And if it had happened a couple of years before, I'm not confident we'd have got through it as well as we did. But from a timing point of view, we were ready for it.
And how, for anyone watching this with multiple branches, how the hell do you detach yourself from not getting involved with the day-to-day stuff?
Really difficult. And you've got to give yourself permission to do it. I mean, which took me years to do.
I assume that you are more of a process person than the people. I know you've got people skills, but you are a process person.
I'm a hub, funnily enough. So I go with whatever's missing, and I'll provide the balance for it. That's me. So hence the reason why, from a business point of view, we had a fantastic culture, but we didn't have, the KPIs and the targets. So
when you say hub, are we talking SDI, the red, blue and green?
Correct, yeah, absolutely.
SDI, if anyone wants to Google it.
Yeah, it's the best one, in my opinion, of all of them. So.
What is your natural state, though?
Me, I'm a hub.
You are a hub?
Yeah, I sit in the middle, but under pressure I go to results, and I go there quickly.
So that's a red, isn't it?
Yeah, red traits. I don't go big, but I do.
Okay, so for anyone, on it. So for anyone who knows their profiling, that would be disc profile D.
Yeah.
So that sort of personality, when you really do go under stress, you fear being taken advantage of by others?
Potentially, but I've got quite a strong script. So if you,
where does that come from? Is that your dad again?
Probably mum, actually. So she was always very kind of nurturing and always said, look, you'll be great, because that's what mothers do, don't they? So I've got a strong script. So when bad things happen to me, I'm broadly, look, I'm going to get through this. Not sure how, but I'll be all right.
Sounds very stoic, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I've been reading up a bit on that recently, and it's fantastic, isn't it? So Ryan Holiday, yeah, he's worth, good book review, yeah. So.
Okay, so the shit hit the fan, if you don't mind me saying. Yeah. You went into COVID, but you had great culture, great people, great senior team.
Correct.
But then you lost your dad.
Correct. Yeah.
How did that hit you?
We'd known for some years, so he'd been ill for 3 or 4 years, and we went into COVID with him. So he died of cancer. But when it did happen, it all happened relatively quickly, because there were like 5 lines of treatment for him, and when the 5th one ran its course, he went downhill very quickly after that. So within kind of 2 months, then he passed away, unfortunately.
Your guide mentor left you.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
How did that make you feel? I mean, I've not lost my father, so I
Yeah.
don't know what it's like, but having
Very-
your father and your business mentor as well.
Yeah, and he was great because he never really told me what to do. He was always 100% supportive. In fact, he was probably always more extreme than I was in terms of, being ambitious and thinking outside of the box. So yeah, that was a massive loss. I mean, like I said, I have spent the last couple of years kind of acquiring other mentors as well. But yeah, the strange thing, it doesn't feel like I've lost him. I still feel like he's just around the corner somewhere, and I'll see him later. So, but one of the issues, it doesn't half focus your own attention in terms of right, okay, that if he was 76, so the clock's ticking, we need to kind of get things done. So,
I mean, how old are you now?
me 41.
And how long do you think you'll be in the business?
I've got no exit strategy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a family to pass the business on to?
Yeah, a son and a daughter. So they're kind of 6 and 7. But if they're interested, great, and if they're not, then that's fine.
So the business is all in your name at the moment?
Effectively, yeah, with my mother. So yeah, but she's completely passive, so she lets me get on with it from that point of view.
You've got a 6-branch network, 41-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you going to get bored?
No, because there's always something to do. And it's interesting actually, because from that point of view, I loved being frontline agency, loved it. And I had to give myself permission.
But you step away. I mean, how do it must be difficult being a hub and a bit of a control freak. Because you are.
I'm not control. I need a plan.
Is that right? Sorry.
Correct. If there's a plan, and it doesn't have to be that good, I'm the easiest bloke in the world. If there's no plan, I get red really quickly, and I don't like it.
When do you lose your reg? Is that then? Is that when you?
Yeah, that.
Are you a pressure cooker? But when you go, you don't go often. But when you do go, you explode.
Yeah. It's quite short and sharp, but yeah.
Have your colleagues seen that?
Now and again, it's quite rare. So, but they might see it once a year or every other year. So.
And do you feel embarrassed when you do that, or is that kind of just a?
No, because I've probably been stewing on it for a while, and it's probably quite well considered, and it needs to be done.
What would your advice be to any estate agent who wants to grow their estate agency business? Because the amount of people that sat on there saying opening up the 2nd and 3rd branches was probably the worst thing they ever did. It's easier when they get to 4 and 5.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, we bought a lettings book back 2014 as well. And like I say, if whatever issues you've got in your business, you're about to find out. It will test you, and it's made us better for it actually. But yeah, be careful what you wish for. Hence my kind of so. But we've gone through the journey, which is why it took us 5 years. Because if you go and troubleshoot a branch, it's pretty obvious what the problems are. You go and do this, that, and the other, and in 6 months' time, the money starts coming through. Whereas when you've got multiple branches, you can't be in. If you're in one office, you're ignoring 5 others. So to create the culture and the infrastructure to be able to coordinate multiple branches.
And how do you do that? Is that having good lieutenants in?
100%, yeah. And I broadly leave them to get on with it. So I've got sales director, operations director, lettings director, finance director. We have a clear plan and strategy. And I look for something called brown M&Ms, as I like to call them, which is the Dave Lee Roth thing, which is, do you know that one? Oh, it's a good one. So Van Halen, so they go on tour, they go into all different venues, yeah? And some venues are better than others, which is fine, apart from the fact they're doing with pyrotechnics, high wire acts, high voltage equipment, etc.
Yeah.
The stage is a death trap, okay? So when they send a rider out, which is when we get there, we want to see this, that, and the other. And one of the things in the middle of the rider is, and on the table within the green room, there will be a bowl of M&Ms with all the brown ones removed. And if this is not as we stipulate, then all bets are off, the gig's not happening, you're not getting your money, no one gets paid, apocalypse. Okay, so all they would do, they turn up at the venue, they walk straight into the green room, they'd look on the table, and if there's something wrong with the M&Ms, either there aren't any, or they haven't taken the brown ones out, lock down, right, check everything, check the electrics, check the fireworks, this place, we're not going on stage until it's right. Or conversely, everything's right with the M&Ms, do you know what? We'll do all our safety checks, but everything's probably all right. So I look within our business for little signs that things aren't right, and I know if I ask a few questions about it, there's going to be problems beneath, and we can sort them. So
what sort of questions do you ask?
I'm reasonably kind of numerically based, really. So there's clues there, aren't there? So,
okay. But you can't. But does that mean you're a spreadsheet king?
No.
Where does the
I love reading spreadsheets. Don't ask me to make one. I wouldn't have a clue.
Okay.
So.
But where does the emotional EQ skills come in?
Because I suppose we all want to be liked, don't we? And I'm not a tyrant, and I want people to do well. And my philosophy is if everyone else does well, I'll probably be all right.
And let's find a little bit more the softer side about you. Is apart from your family and work, what passions do you have in life?
Me, golf is the main one. So I always used to play a lot of sport. Okay. So cricket and hockey is my kind of CV, so to speak. But in recent years, golf has been my main passion.
Okay. So a perfect weekend is at the Belfry then, is it?
That would be very nice, yes.
Okay. And if you went on holiday, where do you
go? We've got a little place over in Portmaddock, over in Wales. And to be fair, I like a really simple life. I like spending time with wife and kids. I like popping out for breakfast, having a nice cup of coffee, and then if I can play a little bit of golf and go for a walk, that's a great day for me. Happy with that. Good
stuff. And what does a perfect breakfast look like to you?
That's a good question. Depends where you are. I'll tell you where it's good though. There's a place in Shrewsbury that does sardines on toast, which is a great sign if you like something that you don't like in a restaurant.
Right.
If they do something you don't like and it's really, really good, you know you're in the right place. So sardines on toast with all the chili flakes and everything, it's very nice.
Okay, finally, a few snap questions. What's been your biggest regret in a state agency?
My biggest regret in a state agency? I don't know is the short answer.
Come on.
Because I think if you had to look at one thing, it would have been when we bought a local lettings business, which was just a huge learning curve because we just weren't really ready for it, basically.
What are you working on at the moment? What new personal projects are you working on that are really flicking your switch?
Loads. So one of the things that I'm sure you're aware of is the old agent response. So we've started looking at building our own technology, which has been fascinating in as much as during the demos, once the demo's finished, you start talking shop with other business owners. And the people in our industry, the intelligence, the IQ, the ideas, it is fascinating. And when you can have those kind of little chats and then you can bring them back to your own business, that pays for the day big time.
What shows and podcasts or books are you reading at the moment that the boys and girls out there that could benefit from?
Yeah, lots really. So I listen to all the estate agency ones. So Your Good Self I was listening to on the car on the way up, so I'll just get that one in. Stephen Brown's one is excellent. $1 Million Agent, love it. You know, Sam Hunter. So I've got a whole list of podcasts. But outside of the industry space, my two favourites would be Seth Godin's Akimbo, which I think is fascinating, and James Altucher, who is just you just learn so much from it. So you just feel a little bit brighter for having listened to it.
When you're 50 years old, which will be in
9 years, 30.
2030, what one thing do you hope to have achieved that you haven't yet?
That's a great question, isn't it? We have got a 5-year plan, so which is to get their business to 5 million in turnover, which at the minute is probably doubling in terms of where we are at the minute. And we're using kind of Pete Wilkinson to kind of help us with that. So my goal is to leave the business, you know, whatever that means, in better state than I found it. And I found it in good condition, by the way. But I want to, you know, leave my mark on it and pass it on to the next generation, really.
And if the kids don't take it on?
I don't know is a short answer. So there would be, for me, it's very much kind of a custodian role of the business. So I think there's two broadly different schools of owning a business. The one is, look, you know, I want the car, I want the holidays, I want the lifestyle, and the business is going to have to pay for it. Okay. Whereas I'm more...
It sounds like you've got a very infinite outset.
Yeah,
almost
totally.
Sonic.
Yeah, I love his stuff. Yeah. What's not to like about what he's about? But my role is different. I'm to serve the business. So
servant leadership.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that fits. So yeah, I'm very clear about what I want, but on the assumption we all agree with that and there's a plan, then I'll leave you to go on with it. It's not difficult. Yeah.
Michael, thank you for your time today. I hope everyone in estate and letting agency land has enjoyed that. You're very well thought of in the industry, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on what made you tick. So thank you for your time today.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you, Chris. Yeah.